Hello, Data Fellows, and welcome to the asynchronous recording of session 38. This was the September case study part 1, where we are working through creating a dashboard from survey data. We also wanted to go through and reintroduce our team, especially because we have a new team member joining us, which we're super thrilled to announce. I will go through and just kind of introduce the team members that you know of, and then I'm going to hand it over to Camille to introduce herself. My name is Alex Koltanowski on the Maya data team. I'm joined by Nafki Taloop and Jen Craver, who we all know. And then we have our new team member, Camille, if you want to come off mute and just introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Camille Maddox. I'm brand new, just started at Maya on Friday. I'm super excited to be joining you all. Just a little bit about me. I'm based in Houston, Texas. I'm coming from an organization that worked with early childhood education organizations nationwide. So I have a strong ECE background, but I've also worked at a school district. And have really focused my entire career on data. So just super excited to learn all about data fellows and then eventually help support you all.
Thank you so much, Camille. We're so excited to have her join us and just to see our little data team continue to grow. So super excited. Just wanted to make sure that we introduce ourselves to everyone. So then we're also just kind of pointing out a quick reminder. While the case study scenarios are going to be based off of real events that maybe you and your district have gone through a similar time, all of the data are completely fake. So we go through and completely make up all of this data. Any data that we use is never pulled from an actual district. It is completely fabricated. So I kind of mentioned this, but wanted to talk about the September learning objectives. So we have the September as a whole month, as well as each session. So for the month of September as a whole, our goal is that at the end of the month of September, you'll created a dashboard using Power BI or Excel, using both the teacher survey and teacher data that answers the following questions. What types of professional development do we need to offer? And are teachers rating their readiness to implement Eureka Math at least a 2.5 out of 3? So our overall objective of the month is to create this dashboard that answers those questions. During our first session of the month, we'll be introducing you to and having you become familiar with the data flow process. So you'll work through the first 2 steps in this process, where you'll clean, prepare, and explore data using Power Query. And that's what we'll be going through as groups in our breakout rooms. During the second session, that's when we will be going through and actually preparing to analyze and then actually visualize the data in the dashboard platform, be that either Power BI or Excel. So today it's all about data cleaning and data preparation. Linked here are the resources that we will be utilizing today or referencing. So all of these are on the Data Hub. There's the Teacher Professional Development Survey, which this is the data set. This is an important one that we need you to have downloaded today. We'll also be referencing the survey workbook, which we covered during August. It was that kind of survey plan that we went over. And then 2 other resources that we've covered in the past that we're just going to be bringing back are our data cleaning checklist that's Power Query specific, as well as our data dictionary template. So these are resources that we're going to reference. We're not necessarily going to pull up and walk through them, but they're things that we've used in the past. So we wanted you to remember that they exist and how we can continue to utilize them. We're now jumping into our vignette to set the scene for today's session. All of this is read from the narrator perspective. Samantha smiled at the screen. Time for data prep. She took to data cleaning like a sous chef preparing a 4-star meal. She only trusted her coding skills and a few data influencers. But today, she entered a new world of data prep. Her district purchased a data prep platform and mandated that all data analysts use the software. Yet, the district did not purchase training. Samantha would sell her soul to code her way out of the messy, dirty data. Yet, she trudged along the data prep. She knew how to make her data tidy with several lines of code, but the codes did not work in her data prep platform. Exasperated, she launched an online search on how to clean wide data. The query resulted in over 2 million responses. Then, a pop-up ad, free webinar on how to use Power Query Data Prep, piqued her interest. She clicked on the link, then landed on a registration page. 1 week later, Samantha attended the data prep webinar. She remained skeptical that a data prep platform could perform as well as her years of coding. But to her surprise, she realized the increased efficiency and speed to process and prep data. She completed standardizing, spelling variations, conditional formatting, transforming data, and descriptive statistics within minutes instead of hours. The experience sealed off her skepticism. So that vignette kind of just sets the stage for what we'll be doing today of rather than going through and manually cleaning our data that I know we've done in the past, kind of using Power Query as this data prep platform and really utilizing the power of it to go through and streamline our data cleaning and data preparation process. So first, during today's session, and this is how our future case studies are going to be organized, we're going to do a little bit of whole group learning. A lot of this, I think actually most of it, we've covered in the past, but we really want to just be specifically applying this to our case study so we can see how it's applied in real life. Because a lot of the topics that we've covered in the past year and a half together, they've been more kind of out there, like how really working today to apply that and say, this is what the data cleaning checklist is in practice. So we'll be going through whole group learning, and then we'll go into our breakout rooms. So first, we're going to talk about this data flow process. And this is a process we'll be going over during both session 1 and session 2 of the month. So the data flow process starts down the river at data cleaning. So when we first get our raw data, we need to go through and clean it and do our check to make sure that this is the data we need. It's going to actually answer the questions that we have. It is kind of has that link. Then we go to data exploration to really see what we can uncover in the data and what further questions we could answer that maybe our initial research sponsor didn't think of. And then after that piece, we'll go to data analysis and visualization prep. So going through and determining what analysis we can do to answer our questions and how we can visualize that. Then we can jump into actually data dashboarding. So based on the analysis that we identified and how we best decided to visualize our data, we're going to do that in our dashboarding platform, which for this group is either Power BI or Excel. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we are communicating those insights that are derived from the dashboard. We don't want it to just sit stagnant in a folder somewhere. We want it to be used and promoted. So talking about how to disseminate these findings in a way that really make for actionable change. During today's session, we'll be focusing on the first 2 steps. So data cleaning and data exploration. So data cleaning really involves sense checking the data and using both the data cleaning checklist and data dictionary to check for duplicate values, check for missing values, and sense check with other internal data sources. And then there's also data exploration. So reviewing the data analysis decision that was shared by the research sponsor and asking ourselves 3 to 5 additional questions that we can use to find additional trends in the data. We'll be focusing on the remaining steps 3 through 5 during the second session. So first, jumping into step 1. This data cleaning checklist and data dictionary template should look familiar to most of you, especially if you were in our Maya cohort earlier. So first is this data cleaning checklist. And this is just a tool that we've developed specifically for Power Query for you to work through every time you pull a raw data set. So what we like to do is as soon as we pull the raw data, we open up a new data cleaning checklist and we start working through this. We'll talk through the steps over here, but a really nice reason to use this checklist is to build that data culture and understanding around what is needed to be done when you get a data request. We've talked about this so many times, but people really underestimate the amount of work that goes into cleaning the data. And we all know we have those people where they're like, can you do this data analysis for me by tomorrow? This is a tool that you can use to communicate where you're at in the data cleaning process and everything that it entails. We also have the data dictionary template that is really important to use in conjunction with the data cleaning checklist. This is because the data dictionary documents what data are included in the data set and what shouldn't be included. So really looking at like this possible values column, making sure that our data set doesn't include anything outside of what is listed here. Because if it does, then we know that it needs to be cleaned and something needs to be changed. So it's referenced in our data cleaning checklist, and it's just an important tool to use initially, as well as in future iterations of data cleaning to allow for that consistency. So we're going to go high level over this data cleaning checklist. Again, this should sound very familiar. And then in our breakout rooms, we're going to go through and actually apply this as we clean the teacher PD survey data. So first thing we do when we open up a data set is we want to conduct a data check to ensure that the data set is valid and it's what we meant to be looking at. So in this case, we'll open it up in Power BI or Power Query and look at our column profiles. So this will tell us what is presented in each column, in each variable. Is it what we want to be looking at? Making sure that it makes sense. Then we always want to go through and check for duplicate cases. We'll verify the correct column headers or those variable names. We'll remove or replace missing null values in our columns. We'll look for out of range and unusual cases. We'll specifically use our data dictionary for that piece because we want to make sure that every cell includes a piece of data that is listed as being included on the data dictionary. And we'll verify our correct data types. So we're going to do a quick call out reminder to different types of data. So this slide should look familiar for Maya folks from previous cohort, but there are 4 main different types of data, and it's important to remember these because they impact the manner that you can analyze and visualize your data. So we have numeric data that is presenting for any number. So this could be, for instance, a student ID, a grade, anything that's presented as a number. We also have a date, which is a date and or time. So a lot of this, especially with our assessment data, we see administration date. Or when we're looking at enrollment data, maybe we see begin date, end date. The way that it's formatted is important because it needs to match how it is presented in your platform. We also have text data, which are referred to as either text or string values. These are just all referred to as text. They can include numbers as well. It's just the way that it's formatted. So a lot of times this is first name, last name, school, topic talk, professional development topic, anything that's that string or text. And then lastly, we have Boolean, which are often those true or false, often translated to yes or no in 1 and 0. So with those 2 different options. So jumping back into our data cleaning checklist and going through the remaining 4 steps. The first one is examining logical relationships. And this can be anything from if a student says they're in 3rd grade, but their birth date says they were born in 1985, we need to look into that because that logically doesn't make sense. So doing a high level overview of that to just, again, kind of sense check your data, make sure it makes sense, make sure there aren't any maybe data entry errors where you need to go back to your district registrar to check with. And then the last three pieces are just around missing data. So you want to identify any individual cases with a high degree of missing data. So a lot of times we'll see this in assessment data where maybe a student started a test, but they didn't complete it. Maybe they were only engaged for 2 minutes and there's no answers. We wouldn't want to keep that as a row in our data set because it's not valid. We also want to identify any columns with a high degree of missing data. This could be caused by maybe if it's a survey, like some survey procedure, like skip logic missteps that were created on administration, or maybe one survey question was just difficult for people to answer and 90% of people didn't answer it and just skipped it. In that case, we probably would want to delete that as well. And then also identifying rows with high degrees of missing data. So after we walk through step one of cleaning the data, we want to go through our second step, which is exploring the data. In this, we're referencing specifically when we're looking at survey data. So this survey plan should look familiar from August. It is linked in the slide deck notes as well as on the data hub. But as a reminder, this is walking us through the information that's needed, how to ask the questions, and then how to analyze the data. So remember, this is when we were working on actually designing the survey. So now we fast forward, maybe the district, they already designed their survey, they implemented it, and now we have the PD survey data back. So we know that the two decisions that we need to make are what types of professional development do we need to offer? And then two, our goal is that we get a 2.5 rating. Are we meeting that goal? So we want to make sure that both of our decisions can be answered by our data that's been collected. So looking at it, we know that the information needed was identified as top and bottom professional development needs. So looking at priority, what are teachers asking for? And then also looking at K-5 math teachers' confidence levels with the HQIM curriculum. We want to be able to look at their knowledge of the curriculum, their ability to implement the lesson plans, and their ability to internalize the lessons. So with this, we know that this is what we are going to be looking through and what we need to be presenting on our dashboard to help our decision makers or research sponsors answer these two decisions. All right, so as we're jumping back, we just wanted to do a quick group discussion and talking about the different scenarios of how nulls affect your data. So if you're thinking about this, like how would your data differ if you counted nulls in each of these different scenarios? So the survey question, should you keep nulls in your data? You had 25 yeses, 21 no responses, and then 4 nulls. So 4 just people that didn't answer with a total of 50. So if we think it through, there's 3 different ways that you could present this data. First, you could count your nulls as no, which would show it as 50-50, which isn't really representative of, the actual responses. Scenario 2, you could delete the nulls, which shows that yes was 54% and no was 46%. And then scenario 3, you could count the nulls. So yes is 50%, no is 42%, and then nulls are 8%. As first, proposing a forced choice answer to just avoid this in general. So rather than letting them skip the question, because this survey question is applicable to everyone, saying that you can only answer yes or no, you can't skip this. If a forced choice cannot be enforced, then advocating for scenario 3, but renaming that null as a did not answer. So we wouldn't want to put I don't know because the respondent didn't say I don't know, but it's just that they didn't answer. Rather than saying a null and having to explain what a null means to everyone, just put didn't answer, no response. That ensures that it's transparent and accurate as possible, because especially when you have smaller numbers, those nulls can really skew your data. So that covers our first September session. We have our first September office hours tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. And then our second September case study, which is building upon our existing work today, is September 19th from 1 to 2:30. We have our second office hours, September 20th, right after that second session from 1 to 2. And then our September community of practice on Wednesday, September 27th from 1 to 2. And as always, like we said, the exit ticket not only gives us really important feedback on how you felt this went, regarding, especially with the case study, like the pacing, how can we work through, how can we make this better for you? But also it tracks your attendance and we can mark and say you attended today. So please complete that. I think Jen put it in the chat. If not, if you can, Jen, that'd be awesome. Otherwise, thank you so much for everyone for joining us today.